broadcasting live out of a basement in Appleton, Wisconsin. You're tuned into Fox Cities Core on WCZR Code Zero Radio. We're the show that gives you an opportunity to call in and be a part of the show. Our call-in line is 920-358-0795. Core. My next guests formed their band in 2017, and since then they have gone on to play well over 600 shows, which is amazing, including Mild Music and Summerfest. They have been featured on Sweden's Got Talent and now have an association with Snow White, which we're going to find out about. They're currently near the end of a Kickstarter campaign for their third full-length album. I'd like to welcome Amelie and Jonathan from 7000 Apart to Fox Cities Core on Code Zero Radio. How are you guys doing today?
So good. Thank you for having us.
Thanks.
It's been a lot of exciting things happening for you guys lately.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's been this month has been kind of crazy. Really, really fun, but also kind of crazy. Yeah.
But is 2017 right for the start of the band?
That's when we started the company. We started it actually in 2014 as a project, more like a YouTube channel and an Instagram account.
That was when it was very much just straight up like a hobby.
Yeah, we were still in long distance at the time, hence the name 7000 Apart. And so we would just do videos. I would record my part in Sweden, John would record his part in the US, and put it together, and yeah.
So, long story short, 2017 was when we started
official. It's really official.
Doing it.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it's kind of tough because then when you celebrate milestones like 10 years, and different things like that, technically it's like, well, was it the first release, or when we released the first song, or when we got together? So
I don't know if we have an official start date, but
I don't know.
So for the sake of conversation, when did the Beatles officially, when would you consider the Beatles officially starting? Was it when Pete Best and those guys played their first show, or was it when Ringo joined the band?
I would ask John's dad. He would know. He would have an opinion on this.
That's my dad question, but I would say it probably is when they officially got together the first time, I would think. Mm-hmm. But
when you come up with a name.
When you come up with the name, I would say when it really starts, but also my dad's oh, they were so big the first time they came to the U.S., or they were so small the first time they came to the U.S., and I'm they were actually really big.
In comparison.
If you put it into perspective, they were really big at that time as well, by the time they even came to the U.S., so...
Let's talk about your love for music. That's a typical way to start is when did you get into music? When did you decide it was something you wanted to do? Your dad was a big Beatles fan.
Yeah. So for me, I really started performing and doing music and all this type of stuff from the time I was 5, I think, or something. My grandpa actually was a pastor of a church, and my grandma was a music teacher, and so I grew up playing piano and all this stuff. And my first performance was in front of a church playing We Three Kings when I was 5, in front of 600 people, and it was I was such a nervous introverted child, so for me doing that was horrible, and I hated every second of it. And then at a certain point, I found rock music, and all of a sudden, all this classical music theory knowledge that I had got converted into rock, and I learned that you can actually write songs, and that was maybe the time I was 11 or something, and then I've been on that journey ever since. So it's we're almost going in on 20 years of working towards making music.
What was your primary instrument at age 10 or 11?
Piano.
That's really young.
Piano, yeah. So I learned piano because my grandma was a piano teacher, so I was forced, very much forced into piano. My parents would totally admit that too. They're we pushed him into piano. But it was great. You learn a lot of things that you can apply to music and for any instrument really if you learn piano.
So when you moved into liking rock music, is that when you picked up a guitar for the first time?
Yeah, and it was very much it's oh, this is cool. This is different. This isn't just Beethoven and Bach, and which I loved all the classical music too, but it was super just mind explosion hearing different genres for the first time. Yeah.
So you're obsessed with music. I don't know if the word obsessed is right, but you were very...
It's the right word for sure.
You were obsessed with music at a very young age. It's amazing to me.
From being 11 maybe, yeah. Yeah, so it's been a crazy journey, and I've been very bad. So Yeah. So it takes time for sure to get better.
And then, Amelie, when did you start getting the itch?
Yeah, I mean, I've been singing my entire life. My mom is a voice teacher and a singer as well, and so for me, that was just like the most natural thing was to sing. And I mean, at the same, like I was, I think 4 when I sang at my little brother's baptism, you know, and so I've definitely like. I started very young, but I never had like a drive to do it. I thought it was like you get discovered and then people take care of things for you. That was like my thing that I thought, because I was surrounded by all these incredible singers, because my mom was one of Sweden's best voice teachers. And so I just thought like someone would come along and be like, yeah, it's time to you're going to sing now and you're going to get songs. And so I didn't have a drive to do it myself really. But I still like worked. I started voice acting when I was like 10 with singing as well. And then it was when I met John that I was like, oh, writing songs, that's kind of cool. That's something I maybe could do. Oh, like performing. Like when I saw the music community and the music scene here in Wisconsin, I was like, oh, you can do this without being like discovered and chosen. You can actually like try to do this yourself. So that was really inspiring. So I without John, I probably wouldn't have gone into it, to be honest. Yeah.
So the voice acting stuff, we're going to talk more about it later. But as far as it being that young, was it for film or TV or just commercial stuff, or what?
But film and TV. It was dubbing, so like the voiceover stuff. So my first 2 projects were Little Einsteins, Disney Junior thing, and then Narnia, the movie Narnia. I did Lucy, and so I started that, and then it just like took off from there, and it was a part of my life.
Were you fans of those shows when you were doing this, or prior to you doing the voice work?
Yeah, I mean, Narnia, I read those books as a kid and I loved them. And so when I got to do that audition, I was like, what? I know this, you know, like, and I was a big fantasy fan as a kid. So Narnia was one of those. Yeah, it was a dream role without me even knowing that it could be a dream role, if that makes sense.
It had to be kind of cool to see some of that stuff before it was released.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I had to keep secrets for sure.
Well, we'll get back to the voice stuff later. But so both really driven early on with music. And then all of a sudden, if you want to talk about it, kind of how you 2 met. I know you're probably very used to telling this story, but
I try to take in like new details over time, but we're starting like joking about like we should just have our fans tell the story at shows, because we tell it so often, and like see if people can actually do it, which they probably could.
And I'll set up a little bit for you. You're over in Sweden. When did you like the music scene in America? Was that something that was a big draw to you, being into music?
The only thing I knew was that my mom was an exchange student when she was 17, and that really changed the course for her, because she got to like take space. Like in Sweden, we're very much like, oh, no one's better than anyone. Like, don't take up too much room. Like, there's that kind of connotation. But for her, like coming to the US and getting to just like sing, and people didn't care if it was good or bad, and it was just like, yeah, cool, take that space, you know, do that thing. That's great. She was so encouraged by that, and so that was something that I was very curious about, if that would be the same for me. And so I that's why I wanted to come to the US partially too, was to like, okay, study a little bit more music, because the year here didn't count. So I had to do my senior year twice, which meant that I could take whatever classes I wanted. I had to take like English and American history, but besides that, I just took like music classes, and we met in music theory. So that's how we met, and it became that for me. I mean, it definitely like let me do more music and discover who I was. And then meeting John, we started like we didn't write that much music together the first year. We were so just interested in each other. How big was the school that John was going to?
It was Preble High School, it's a pretty big school for sure. I think we had over 2,000 students at that school, so it was very big.
That was just in the high school?
Yeah, in the high school, yeah.
Well, so do you remember the first time you laid eyes on Amelie?
Yeah, well, so in the music theory class, we actually had this like, I think we did like presentations or something of like
your instrument.
And so Amelie sang, and I don't remember what I did. Maybe I played piano or guitar or something, and it was just kind of this realization that I was like, oh, she's a really good singer, and like that's cool. like, because I had a high school band at that time, and so it's just like, okay, well, you know, maybe she'd want to like sing with us because that'd be fun. And so then I like got her information, and I'm like, yeah, I have this super cool studio, you know,
in my basement.
In my basement, and it was like at my parents' house, and it was like, you know, it was basically just like one microphone and like a laptop.
Yeah.
At a desk. And
in a corner.
In a corner. And
I had grown up with studios. So, like, to me, like, I was like, oh, you have a studio in your basement. That must be, like, the studios that I've grown up doing voice acting in. So that was, like, what I had, like, that was my expectation.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, our first hangout was in his studio.
Yeah, so it was still, like, it was a studio, you know? It was a studio. And, like, that's the thing is you really don't need much. But the thing was it was very much... it was also kind of an excuse just to hang out, I guess. And so we like played some, I think we played some music the first time we hung out. And then it was like, we just were like so interested in like each other because there's so much difference between Sweden and the US. And so I just started learning a lot about Sweden. She was learning a lot about the US. And like, I think that's kind of what really, like, that's how everything began for us, was just being like curious about that type of stuff as well. Yeah. And it was very different. So
I'm curious about this music theory class again.
Yeah.
So I mean, how the school sounds really big, but how big was this class? How many people were in there?
Maybe like 15.
15, 20 maybe.
Yeah,
it's still a decent size.
Yeah, and I'm always interested in like fate and destiny and like how things, little things, like even just a class of 15 people that can, you know, this can blossom out of that.
Yeah.
So John, when you went up to her to ask her about music and to come over to your house and see the studio, were you nervous to do that? Because you were singing in your current band at that point?
Yeah, I was actually the lead singer for a long time in my middle school, high school. That was from like the time, you know, like being 11, being like, oh, I can start a rock band. I can do that. So cool. You know, with my like other 11-year-old friends, and we're all just like, let's start a rock band. We got this.
What was the name of the band?
I think it was, so we had like so many different names, honestly. Like, I forget what the first one was, but like the last one was Sanctify, like, because we were in the Christian music scene at that time, or I was in the Christian music scene at that time. And so it was very much like again, because my grandpa was a pastor at churches, so we got to be able to perform at churches and all these different places like that. And so, yeah, it was like, we actually had a lot of different members that are still active in Wisconsin, which is crazy. Like, and so I've actually played with a lot of people from different bands, like including Charlie DeVillers. You know, I played with Marshall Zach from Wet Possum. John TK was one of the first. John Tabersquack was one of the first members of one of the bands, and then like a bunch of other random people, like people who are still playing in the music scene. So it's really cool. It's really fun, like seeing each other like grow, and like people in Milwaukee and all these people. So. Yeah, I don't know. I was very much this kid. My senior year, I was like, I want to meet every single person at high school.
You were going to add every single person on Facebook.
Because I'm like, I know I'm not going to probably see a lot of these people again. So I'm like, I just want to like meet every single person. And so I made it my mission to add every single person from the high school on Facebook and talk to every single person. And so like, I kind of did that. Like, I
you
think
were really confident.
I met like so many people, and like, I was very confident, but also just like I was, I don't know. I just had fun with it. I love people, even though I'm still pretty introverted. Sometimes I'm quite extroverted too. So I kind of thrive in those environments where there's like so many people, just because I love.
It's
people.
so good now when we do like networking events, because I can be like, go be American. When I'm like, if we're in Sweden and I'm like, I don't really feel like, I don't want to go up to them. Like, I'm kind of nervous. I'm like, you go. John, go.
Well, and John, is it weird for you when you go to Sweden? Because Amelie, I'm sure when you're here, and I've heard in other interviews, people are like, oh, can you say this word or say that word? And it's almost kind of like a novelty in a way, but do you get that, John, when you go to Sweden, where people are asking you, hey, can you say this word, or, you know, and then...
So the big thing in Sweden is, like, everyone speaks English super well. Like, it's like I think it's like the third most fluent speaking English country in the world. It's like 86% of people speak fluent English. And so, like, it's, like, not that far behind the U.S., actually. It's, like, kind of crazy. So, like, but the big thing is, in Sweden especially, is, like, everyone is fascinated by America, just for a variety of reasons, but they all want to talk English. So it's like, it's almost one of those things where it's like, I want to practice my Swedish, but then like, you know, you get 5 seconds into a conversation and you mess up a Swedish word and they're like, oh, let's speak in English now. And you're like, but I want to learn your language, you know? So, I don't know. It's hard.
Well, how was the chemistry between you two musically? You said you jammed a little bit or played around.
Not great.
No,
like, actually,
it really wasn't. Like,
yeah.
it wasn't like a natural, like, oh, this feels natural and easy.
Yeah.
It's something that we've had to work really hard on. Like, our chemistry
really,
is
yeah.
fantastic, like, personally, but musically it was not there from the beginning.
We both came from such different backgrounds. I was from more like a rock, punk, metal world, and Amelie was in the pop, musical theater, like, that whole world.
Yeah.
And
we were so like we're both leaders, I would say. And so we both want to lead when it comes to the music too, and that was just like hard to like figure out.
it took a while.
but I would say we're there now.
Yeah.
So then a year passes and Amelie, you have to leave.
Yeah.
Pick it up from there.
Yeah, no. So yeah, we dated that whole year almost, even though like it took a while for us to like be like officially dating because I was leaving, so I was like, that's stupid, you know. I was being very pragmatic, and but yeah, I had to go home and we were like, I guess we're trying this thing. Like John was so sure, which was helpful for me, and so we were just like, let's try long distance, see where it ends up, and so you came to visit Sweden that December. It's like 6 months later, and then I came here, and then he came to me. Like, so we would go back and forth, for 3 years. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of culture shock with that, but it was definitely, I think, it was basically we spent those 3 years long distance, and that's why we say at the beginning of this. We kind of started in 2014. It was basically like just a way of having something to do. Yeah. And so every project that we did took like a month or two. So any video that was on YouTube from that time period was like, it took a month or two because like the internet was so slow back then. And like, you know, so you'd send a video and then be like, oh no, I need this one change in the...
Yeah, it's not completely synced here. Like, we need to redo it.
And because she had worked in voice acting, so like she's like, you know, it's not in sync, and I'm like, I don't know, it looks fine to me. Like, so it's like a lot of those things, and they were kind of bad, but also it was learning, and it was something for us to do while we were in separate countries and 7-hour time difference and all that.
And so during that time, you were working on music and music videos and then uploading them. And hence the name 7,000 apart.
Exactly.
Yeah, because we were 7,000 kilometers apart from each other.
Yeah.
And then when did you make the decision to make the big move?
Yeah, so we did our first show, 7,000 apart, here over in Green Bay on December 10th, 12th?
You're
10th,
probably
whatever. It's one of those. In 2015.
I was just stressed that day. So
he was stressed because we played, and then we got home and we got on the couch just watching a movie, and then John asks me to marry him, and I said yes, and so that was like he finished college in 3 years because he's like, we can't do this any longer.
Long distance is horrible.
And so we got married in Sweden at 21, which looking back on it, I'm like, we were 21. That's insane.
That's insane by like U.S. standards,
like
but
my
by Swedish standards, that's like
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Like my friends are barely getting married in Sweden, like now at 30. You know what I mean? Like so, I can't believe we did that, but I'm so glad we did, obviously. And so we got married in Sweden, but then moved to the U.S. because there was a big immigration crisis happening in Europe at the time, and so we wouldn't be able to be together. And we were like, we need to be together. So that's why we got started in the U.S.
So how did getting married change the dynamic of your working relationship?
Well, I mean, I think the biggest thing was like we basically went from being like we're long distance to like seeing each other for a month or two in a row, like maybe once or twice a year, to all of a sudden being like, okay, now we're living together in the same country, and like I guess let's try to do music. And like the first thing we had to do when we got married was like apply for Amelie's permanent residency. So it's like, you know, a 140-page document. And so like I think, to be honest, the big thing is like we were just doing the thing still. And Amelie couldn't work at that time, which meant because of she was waiting for permanent residency. And so it basically just meant we're like, let's just do as many open mics as we possibly can. So I think like there was always like external stress. So like for us, like working together was just like, this is just fun. Like it was just fun, and it was so hectic. And like we did, I think like 60 open mics in 2016 or something. It was like, it was so many open mics. It was like a lot of the open mics were weekly, and we did a few a week. And so, you know, I think it kind of, that really helped us to be like, get up on stage, play 2 songs, maybe 3 songs, no sound check, nothing, just like hopefully your guitar's in tune, and then go, and then get off the stage. And I think that that's kind of really helped our professional like
so much
life, and just like even to today, you know, like just having done that, it's so good.
In the band, you two are the 2 core members of the band, but you also have, you know, when you do the full band shows, you're bringing in other people. Is it hard to find other people that go the distance to learn the music? And then I know you mentioned Charlie earlier being in bands. I know Charlie played bass for you for a while.
We've been very, very lucky, I would say too. But it is hard to find people, obviously, that can commit and that aren't in a million other bands as
obviously
well.
Everybody bringing their flavors changes everything just a little bit every time.
Yeah, but it's just been like all the people that we've worked with, we just adore them all, really. And they're really dear friends of ours, too. And I wish we could play with all of them all the time. But I'm so happy that, like, I mean, that Charlie went on and started Modern Haunting and started taking that seriously. Because that meant that we found Jasmine, who we play with now. And she lives in Sweden, but she's half American. So she can come on tour here, which is absolutely nuts that we have someone that can work with us in both countries. That was just something we were like, oh, what if this could happen? And then it does. So that's incredible.
Carly was actually our intern one of the years that we had Charlie. And so Charlie was the bassist. We had Thomas, who is also in Modern Haunting, was our drummer. And so that's how Charlie and Thomas met. And then
so they met because of us,
Carly was the intern, so it was like one day that Thomas couldn't do.
It was Summerfest.
It ended up being Summerfest. And so we're like, we need a drummer. And Carly's like, well, I know how to do a money beat. And
we're like, good enough, let's go.
Let's go. So her first gig was at Summerfest. First ever time performing drums in front of people. And then she started playing with us, and now she's done like an insane amount of gigs.
She's gotten so good.
And then in Sweden, Jasmine was like, yeah, the best drummer I know is like my brother. And so like her
that
brother
worked out really well
is also American Swedish, like Swedish-American. So like, yeah, it's just great. I feel like we have a decent variety of people who are in both countries now that we can perform with. And, you know, even some rainy day when we're like, we need a bassist, you know, we can be like, hey, Charlie, like, please come out. You know, like, or Thomas as well. You know, like,
absolutely.
And there's some other, a lot of other people that we have loved working with. So it's great.
When did you start getting the urge to get that first full album out? You know, I know that was probably a big deal. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we recorded an EP in John's parents' basement because this one venue in Green Bay was like, we can't book you until you have music out. And we're like, okay. And she's like, yeah, we have this, I think it was like April 1st. We have April 1st open. Okay, that's in 2 months. Okay, let's make an EP happen, you know? So we recorded that EP in your parents' basement.
Yeah, we actually ended up taking it down, but I'd be okay.
Yeah, we can put it back up now. I feel like
we have enough other work now that it feels fine putting it back up, because people still come up about that album every once in a while.
Any chance you just re-record it or make it to where you're more comfortable with it?
We could, but I think I think it's kind of nice though too, just like being like,
see the growth.
This is what we did back then, and like, but the first album where we're like, we want to do this as properly as we possibly can do was in 2018. And so we had started working with an artist coach at that time, and she's like, you should really like, you know, take some time to like actually do this, because we were like, we want to get it out by summer, and she's like, no, you should like, we should actually like decide on this, find an actual studio, go in, like do pre-production, do everything that you possibly can. Like,
and we did a challenge, a thing on Facebook called Song a Week, So we would write a song every single week starting in 2018. So by summer we had, 20 some songs to choose from. And so that was like a really, really good way for us to just get into it. So every Sunday night there was like a deadline because you had to upload it. And then on Sunday you would listen to other people's songs, give comments and feedback, and then people would do that for you. And I think that was such a great way for us to get started. And then we booked studio time in the fall in Sweden.
Yeah, so it's like proper studio, producer, all these things, and it was really, really stressful because we were also running a Kickstarter campaign back then to raise the money for the album as we're in the studio recording it. So we're like, hey, we're in the studio right now recording this, hoping we have the money to pay the producer. So please support. So please support the Kickstarter, and people did, and that's the first project came out, and I think it really gave us so much credibility both in Wisconsin, but in Sweden, and just in the US even too.
And we decided to make it very, very bare bones, like only real instruments, because we wanted to look back on it and be like, okay, that's timeless, And I would say we succeeded with that. I mean, it's rare that I listen to our old music, just in general, listen to our own stuff. But when I do, I'm like, that's not bad.
Well, that album was called We Are More.
Yeah.
And the album cover, like you guys, it's a nice kind of half profiles of your face. Like, how involved in the actual packaging of your albums do you get? I know the music is one thing, but it's also a whole nother thing for the artwork and stuff like that.
I would say I'm very involved in the visual stuff in general. Like I take some photos as well, and to me, I can always see something. That doesn't mean I know exactly what it is I want, but we are very, very lucky that we've been working with incredible photographers. So the photographer who took that first picture for We Are More actually took the picture for this album as well, this next album, this third album. So and we've grown up together because she was our wedding photographer, and we were her first wedding, and we also did a play when we were small. So it's just so cool that people come back into your lives, and then you might go your separate ways for a couple of years, and then you meet up again and you do something. And we have some incredible photographers here in the US too that did everything for Feel Your Feelings, our previous album. And so it's usually I have ideas, and then these amazing photographers or graphic designers help make it come to life.
Well, so when that first full length came out, did that open doors that weren't open previously?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like people started, being like, okay, these are like musicians that are like trying to do this thing, and I think that
trying very hard.
That's what kind of put us on that path and made people be like, okay, they're actually trying to do this. And I mean, the biggest thing I think was we got. I think Sweden's Got Talent probably came in part from that, and then also we got one of the songs got synced in an MTV show, and so both of those things I think gave us a lot of credibility for even booking events and stuff. Just like people being like, okay, well, these different types of organizations like what 7000 Apart is doing, maybe they don't suck, basically, and so I think I think that made a big difference. And same thing in the music community. Like the first album was very, it had a lot of jazz, chord orientation type things. And so in the music community too, people were like, oh, these are thought out a bit more than just your 4-chord pop song. And so I know even Charlie, I remember when we were teaching all the songs from that album, it was there's a few songs that just have so many chords. And it's this sucks to learn, it takes a while to memorize all of those chords too. And so we kind of learned a lot from that album too. And
sure.
Yeah.
With the Sweden's Got Talent thing and the MTV, was it The Hills that was? So is it kind of weird when you get to be a part of something like that, as far as seeing your social media traffic? Was there a big uptick as soon as that stuff aired?
There was definitely an uptick in Shazams for the MTV thing, and then I thought that being on Sweden's Got Talent would give us a huge boost. But the thing is people aren't really looking for people to follow anymore. You know what I mean? When Instagram first came out, you were like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna follow them on Instagram. I'm gonna follow them. But I feel that's changed the past 5 to 8 years, where it's been you would go you would you don't really go out of your way to follow people. Maybe if they like, if you swipe by, but so it didn't give us this uptick that I was hoping
It was also
for.
COVID
Also, it was right before COVID hit, so everyone was just like watching the
February of
news.
2020.
Yeah.
So we had come off our first regional tour, like Sweden's Got Talent just aired, so everyone's like, this is amazing. And then it was like, we were actually even talking with record labels a little bit and stuff at that time. Some really big labels too that would have like been great to work with, but they kind of everything changed with the pandemic because it shook up the labels a ton, and a lot of the people that we had been talking with were quitting or got burned out or just so stressed from the pandemic, so they weren't really able to look at new artists at that time.
So right before COVID, were you already starting on Feel Your Feelings at that point?
No, so Feel Your Feelings came out of COVID. I struggled really, really hard with my mental health during that time. And so it was more of a necessity in a way. It was like, we also realized that the songs we were writing had this theme to them. And we realized that that was something that was going to happen. And John was struggling as well. And it was his therapist that said, John, you need to feel your feelings.
Well, I noticed John has a tattoo.
Yeah.
You've got that tattoo.
I do, yeah. I have a tattoo for Feel Your Feelings, and it's just one of those things, like normally we write songs that we need to hear, or that we think are fun or whatever, and so like it was, for Feel Your Feelings, it was very much like, I need to hear this anyway, so I might as well make songs about it that we have to sing, you know?
Well, and you guys kind of rolled it out differently too. You put it out in 2 EPs and then merged it into one, with the first one being a little more like a serious tone.
Yeah.
And what gave you that idea to do that? It's an interesting way to release.
Yeah, we just realized that they were very separated. So like we realized that there were some songs that are like, oh, this is very sad. This is very introspective. This is more of like that, like the heavy feelings to it. And then we also wrote songs that we needed to hear that were up tempo and that were like, no, come on, let's do this. Like, more encouraging and more uplifting. And to me, I just also like the visual representation of that. Plus, splitting it into two meant we could also release over a longer period of time. And so I just really like that. And plus, we wanted to make vinyl for the first time. And then you have the side A and you have the side B. And so it just, that just kind of developed from that.
It just made sense in our mind, I guess. But it was a very long project to release for sure because of that.
There was a couple years in between, wasn't there? In between the EP. So do you have EP2 was not written when you released the first one?
I think everything was written.
Everything was written. I think we had demos for pretty much everything as well. It was just that the big thing is we actually ended up working with another producer because we wanted it to
Grammy winner from Nashville, right?
She's incredible.
So we wanted it to be stepped up.
Also very busy. And so like in order to fit into her schedule, it had to take that long.
Yeah.
And did you do that down in Nashville?
Some of it.
Some songs. So we would go down to Nashville a lot from 2020 to 2020.
And that was still like a weird time, obviously.
It was still weird, but she like we met with her a few times. We had a coach then in Nashville who was kind of introducing us to the Nashville music scene and stuff. And so we did a little bit of recording with her, but then we did a lot of recording ourselves just at home. And then we worked with, when we were in Sweden, we ended up recording a bunch of stuff there as well. So it's definitely a combination of like all those different things. I would say like, working with Charlie and Thomas, that really came out of the pandemic.
Yeah.
And like they are the guys that really helped craft our initial band sound.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like we worked with them so much. We did so many live streams and just like...
And then live shows. Where
it's like, okay, what do we want the bass and drums to sound like? So we had a very clear vision of that. And they're amazing like at recording too. So we felt very like confident in just like recording that. But then we wanted it to be like this Grammy-winning producer. We're like, can you like just elevate what we're doing basically for the demos? And we also wanted to move more towards recording ourselves. And so the first half of the album was completely basically her. Like we sent her just a few things and then she redid a lot of it. Whereas the second half, I actually produced a lot of it.
Yeah.
So I think I did like maybe 70-80% of the production, and then she like changed a sound here and there,
Elevated it.
but
Yeah.
you know, like mixed it a little bit, you know, stuff like that. But yeah, I think it was a very long process, but we learned so much from the second album as well. Yeah.
And then you decided to put out another album and crowdfunding that one.
Yes.
So now it's time, because I know we just put out like the complete version last year of Feel Your Feelings, but to us, like Feel Your Feelings was a long time ago that we wrote those songs. So since then we have written like about 100 songs, maybe not all finished, but like ideas and songs. And so for us, we were really excited to start the next thing. And so this time fully producing it ourselves.
Yeah.
And so the Kickstarter officially kicked off about a month ago almost?
Yeah, almost.
You're over
So we
halfway
only
there.
have 6 days left, and it's a total of 31 days. So yeah, I think it was March 5th to April 5th. Yeah.
Well, and you've been through this before. Is it just as stressful as it
Oh,
was
yeah,
the other
absolutely.
times?
It's so stressful. Yeah.
It's so stressful, but also so rewarding. And so like your emotions go like haywire, because like one day like 10 people will back it and you're like, oh my God, people are so nice
We can
and
do
so
this.
generous. We can do this. And then one day you get 0 backers and you're like, oh, what are we doing wrong? What can we do? And
I'm just gonna quit music.
Yep.
I'm done.
Yep. This is not for us
This is
anymore.
a sign. You know, it's a thing.
Well,
Yeah.
you, both of you are full-time musicians.
Yeah.
That's what you do. And that had to be a scary leap, going to, quit your day jobs and just do music full-time.
Yeah.
Now you've got the extra stress of the Kickstarter, which,
Yeah, yeah.
which if let's not to play devil's advocate, what if it doesn't happen? Do you start it again?
So if it doesn't happen, that would be very sad. We would probably put out just like put up everything on our website, and if the people that backed it, if they want to give us a shot that way, we could do it that way. But we'll probably not be able to do vinyl if we don't get the Kickstarter.
And
'cause
you've
that's so
done vinyl
expensive.
before, haven't you?
Yes, we did it for Feel Your Feelings, so we know how expensive it is.
Yeah. So we would love. I think the main thing is like if we don't get it, we're still gonna have to figure out some way of making that money from, and still probably what we would do is probably like put it on our website, be like, if you want to buy stuff even after the Kickstarter is done.
Yeah.
Like that's, I think.
Like do a little like just pre-sale, but we know that's not gonna work as well. There's a reason we do the Kickstarters, and we always say like, this is the last time, we're never doing it again. But then there's I mean, it's the music industry. There's not a ton of money, and especially with the
labels
recorded side of things.
Yeah, record labels we've looked at working with labels, and the thing that we keep coming back to is just like they basically give you a really bad loan.
Yeah.
It's like a really bad loan that you have to pay back like 10 times, and if you don't pay it back, then they're going to drop you. So like we're like, that seems way worse than the Kickstarter. Like, and
Yeah.
maybe it's not. Maybe it is better. I don't know. Like, maybe it would go better. But at the same time, like, for where we're at right now, we're just like, we'd much rather rely on people that we know actually care about us instead of people that don't. You know?
Yeah, and it's not like we're not asking for donations. We're selling, like, you can get a hoodie or you can get a tote bag,
Yeah.
and things that we like. And we also always make sure to design merch that we would like to wear, and so we're hoping that other people will like it as well.
Well, I think it's great because it's asking your supporters to make a commitment up front instead of taking a chance. And you hear a lot of, I'm sure you've heard it with T-shirts or different things. Oh, if you make that, I'll get it. And then you
Yeah.
make them and they don't get it.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's just kind of a commitment, which I think is a great idea. And you guys are really like pushing on social media. You're very active on social media. Can you walk me through a typical day of being in the life of a full-time musician?
During Kickstarter or not during Kickstarter?
Let's do not during Kickstarter.
Okay.
Okay, that's way more chill.
a little bit less stressful. Yeah.
We get up, we go to the studio, we might have a meeting either at the studio or somewhere else. We love like networking with other musicians and stuff like that. We might write a song with someone else.
Yeah.
Maybe
A lot
record
of
a little
networking
bit.
events,
Yeah.
especially in Sweden. there's a lot of
record
stuff.
something for social media, maybe.
Are you spending a lot of time booking shows? You both play quite a bit.
Yeah, we are so lucky now that we are working with some booking agents that take care of the bulk of that. There's definitely like still people reaching out to us directly, and we might reach out to things directly for like, this looks cool, let's do that. But I would say like the bulk of it is taken care of.
For context on that as well, like I spent 5 months in 2019 booking shows for 2020.
Yeah.
Like literally unpaid, like 4 hours a day with emails. And I booked us a regional tour, and then I booked us another regional tour, and then I booked 70 shows in Wisconsin for 2020. So
I didn't even know there was 70 places to play in Wisconsin.
Yeah. So I literally 5 months of my life, and no contracts, nothing, because like the music industry kind of works that way sometimes. And so like all of a sudden COVID comes and just like everything is canceled. So literally not only 5 months of my life I didn't get paid for, but then like another 4 or 5 months that we didn't get paid for because of the shows being canceled. And so like that really put it into perspective for me, where I'm like, you know, if I'm paying a booking agent 15% or something, but I don't have to spend 5 months of my life, you know, and if they can book better shows, if they can maybe get some contracts so there's some sort of safety in case the show gets canceled. And so like we started working with agents at that time, like right in 2021, I think it was. And it's been great. Like generally speaking, like they have been able to fill our dates for the last 3 years.
Especially summer.
Yeah. But in Sweden, we're starting all over, so we're doing those 5 months of booking again, and so it's like now we're
we also try not to play as much in Sweden because we like our goal is to live our life in seasons, where it's like, okay, summer we tour as much as we can, okay, then fall comes, we write, then we record, and then we release, and then we do it all over. And because if that in that way you don't get as overwhelmed, because I mean being an independent artist, you wear like 20 hats, you work 20 different jobs, and if you can like separate those jobs into times of the year, that just helps like so much. Yeah,
so that's kind of, every day does look different seasons look different. If you talk about like what does summer look like, it's like every day is a show basically, or every other day is a show, you know, 23, 24 shows a month in different cities across Wisconsin and the US and stuff as well. So it's very hectic.
Well, this is a good question for now. It comes from our good friend Kurt Gunn.
Oh, hi Kurt.
Love Kurt.
His question is, what's the worst place you had to sleep? That's a great question,
okay.
Kurt. Thank you.
Ooh, we slept on the floor of our friend's apartment in Chicago once. I mean, that might not sound that bad, but like just like it was just a rug.
I'd have to see the place.
Yeah.
It was like
there were also snakes in the room. I'm not like so scared of snakes, but I know some people are like, but they have like iguanas and snakes.
We love our friend. It was great. Thank you for having us.
But I remember that. That's like the first thing I thought of.
But no,
like,
we've slept in we've slept a lot of weird places for sure.
Cars?
We've told ourselves like not to do that, because we have friends who like toured out of their vehicles, and we're like, we will go very far. We will do a lot of compromise, and we will like take a lot, but we will not sleep in our car.
That being said, we have slept in cars, but just not for the whole night.
No, exactly. Just take turns like while you're driving through the night.
We've driven like, for example, we drove to Missouri one time after playing in Chicago.
Yeah.
So we played in Chicago at like 9 in the evening, and then we had to drive to Missouri for the next day. And so like, you know, we drove and got there at like 5 a.m. or something.
Yeah.
So like we would trade off throughout the night, like driving. And so stuff like that happens too, where you're like, you know, you have to drive a long ways in order to get home. And sometimes you see the sunrise and the sunset, you know, like in terms of you go to the gig, the sun is setting, then you drive home and the sun is rising. And so it's a lot of sleeping in the car, but we try to not sleep in the car as much as possible.
Yeah.
And if it is, it's more when we're driving.
Exactly. And I would also say like we were lucky enough because John went to school down in Kentucky. We have some friends in Nashville. Like when we've toured outside of Wisconsin, we've tried to tour to places where we know someone so that we can stay with them.
Yeah.
It's good thinking ahead.
Yeah, we tried.
Thanks for the question, Kurt.
Yeah.
So as far as the Green Bay scene, would you consider yourself part of the Green Bay scene as your home base?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say so, like, or the Wisconsin scene in general. This is definitely where we play the most shows in northeastern Wisconsin, and Sweden is home base in a different way, but I would say, like, for shows, it's definitely Wisconsin.
And they're both home scenes, I would say.
Yeah.
That's hard for some people to like comprehend, I guess, but it is really like both of them are our homes, and we live in, you know,
in both places,
like 4 months a year at least in Green Bay, like touring every single day almost, and then like the rest of the year in Sweden, and we come back sometimes more than that too. So it's almost split 50-50 for the last since we've been together. So yeah.
Well, you've played a lot of the big festivals around here. I know I've seen you at Paper Fest, and you know you played Mile of Music.
Yeah.
Do you like playing the festivals? Is that a nice break from you know, the daily grind of touring around and playing?
Absolutely. And, you know, when you get a little 45-minute set, you're like, oh my gosh, it's such a luxury, because most of the things around here are the 3-4 hours. And so, but it's almost like you get, like, it's too short, because all of a sudden it's just over and you're really enjoying it. And it's like, but I have to go home now, you know?
Yeah.
But it is really, really nice. I mean, Mile, it's a magical place, and it's so cool that's even a thing here. And, I mean, Paperfest has always been so fun as well when we get to do that. Summerfest, like, yeah, I'm just amazed. Like, I don't feel like an outsider anymore, but at the same time, like, this is not what I grew up with music, like, at every bar, music at, like, every restaurant pretty much in the summer. And it's just such a luxury that I hope people don't take for granted, that there is so much music around, and just being able to, like, discover your favorite artists in your own hometown at, like, the local pub, you know. I think just
it's crazy.
That's so cool.
It's really cool.
I've got to ask you about somebody that you had featured on a song that started a fire, and Tommy Johansson, like, he's a big deal in Sweden, right?
Yeah, he's huge.
Can you tell me, like, how did he get involved on that track?
Oh my gosh. So when we
he definitely looks like he stands out in the video.
That he was able to be in the video. It
was crazy.
It's just so
people thought he was AI.
Yeah, people were like, did you fake that? Did you green screen him in or something? So when we first got married in 2016, we did a road trip. That was kind of like our honeymoon, because our friends were getting engaged. I mean, she didn't know about it, but he had planned, whatever, out in North Carolina. And so we did a road trip out to North Carolina, down through Georgia, and then up through Nashville. And just to visit people, and to, like, I hadn't seen much of the U.S. And when we were in South Carolina, in Charleston, we had some time to kill before meeting up with a friend, and so we're just like, let's just walk around. And we looked on the map. Okay, here, this kind of looks like a shopping street. Oh, music farm. That's probably like a music store. We can go play some guitars, you know. And we get there, and it's a venue. And I'm like, oh, this is cool. And I was just looking at all the, like, posters, and I'm like, oh, Sabaton, that's a Swedish band. I have friends who know them. That's so cool. When are they going to be here? Oh,
that's today.
We turn around, and there's a big tour bus sitting right there. And then in a lawn chair, you know, one of those, like, fold-out ones, this guy with very long blonde hair was just
wearing all black in the middle of summer in South Carolina.
Just like enjoying the sun. We're like,
this is not an American. No. Like, this is very much a Swede. And so, yeah, so I'm like, Amelie, you need to go talk to him in Swedish. And she's like,
no, we don't do that. We don't do that. Like, that's going over the line. And he's like, no,
do it.
And then I was like, okay, fine. Only because I knew we had some friends in common. And I was like, hey. And then he got really happy because he had been on tour for a while. It was his first tour with Sabaton. And he's like, oh, you're coming to the show tonight? And we're like, we didn't even know it was happening. And he's like, oh, I'll put you on the list. And ever since then, like, when they've been in the U.S., we've been able to go see their shows, and we've gotten closer as friends. And then when we were talking about side B, we were like, oh, it'd be cool to have a feature on one of the songs, you know? And I was like, what if we asked Tommy to do a guitar solo for Start a Fire? Because that would be insane. that'd be so cool. And I'd never in a million years thought that he would have time or be able to say yes. But he's like, yeah, that sounds great. Let me get on that. And we got 2 options. We got like a cool version, and then we got like the super cool version.
Yeah.
And we're like, we got to use like the crazy one.
The super crazy one is really cool. So
yeah. And so we were able to do that. And then we were working with this film school in Sweden. And this was like a year and a half later or something. And they wanted to make a music video for Start a Fire. And we were like, hey, Tommy, I know this is super random, but we're doing a music video. Would you like want to be in it? And he's like, yeah, I can do that. I can swing by. And we're like, what? Yeah.
That's cool. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's nuts.
It's crazy.
He's such a sweetheart.
And you got other big news.
Yeah.
With the last week, you announced that you were going to be the Swedish voice of Snow White.
Yeah,
in the new
exactly.
movie.
It's absolutely, it's been a dream come true. I mean, I love voice acting, and I love when I get to do it, and in any capacity. And then being a Disney princess has always been like at the top of my like bucket list, you know, and that I got to do that is just absolutely crazy.
So is that something you applied for, and then you had to wait a little while to hear back?
So they called 4 people in to do a voice test. And somehow, I mean, maybe they listened to 7000 Apart, maybe they saw some clips online and they were like, yeah, she could hit those notes. And brought me in for a voice test, and then, you know, they sent it into Disney, and then you wait, and you wait, and you wait, and you wait. And then, I got a text that I got it. Absolutely crazy. The same day we took pictures for our next album.
It had to be really hard not to tell anybody about that.
It's just been like absolutely crazy. Feedback has been good so far. Like, not a ton of people like know that it's me and stuff. Like, it just premiered last week, and it's obviously only being shown in Sweden, and they haven't released the soundtrack, and they haven't released a Swedish trailer really either. So it's like I haven't been able to see anything really. But from the people, I have some people on my TikTok. I started a TikTok for my voice acting, and the people that have gone to see it say it's really, really good. So
when you were recording that, are you watching the footage and then trying to match, because the lips always don't match up when you're doing something like that?
No, of course not, because it's a whole different language. And in animation, you don't think about it too much. I mean, for anyone who's watched anime dubbed into English, like, you don't worry about it. But when it comes to live action, it's just it's hard to make it look natural, but you do the best you can. And so you have one screen with the original footage, and then you have one screen with the script, and so you just try to fit it into there and have the right emotion and the right tempo and all of that.
Is it easier to match up the dialogue or the singing?
Ooh, it's singing in a way, because like it's so like syllable by syllable. They translate it like to make sure that it's the exact same amount of syllables, I would say. But it is hard too, like, because obviously when you're singing, you're more expressive. And so if you're singing an like, you're going to open your mouth really wide. And if then the Swedish word is like an then you're not going to like, you're like, hey, you know, like, so you just have to make do with what you have.
And then was there somebody that would look at everything, almost like a test corrector at the end of the day, to make sure that everything passed? Yeah,
so we have a director and an engineer working with me in the studio, and they would like check on it at that time. And then it also goes into editing after. And then if something looks funky, then you come back. But it's rare, because they do such a good job in the recording studio.
Is there going to be any tie-in with 7000 Apart and this movie once it's it's already out? So
yeah, it is out. I just hope that people will see it and that they will be curious. Oh, who's the singer? You know, and we're planning on singing some of the songs on tour, but it all depends how the movie. As you might have heard, it's a controversial movie, and it's the worst rated movie on IMDb ever. I am just happy I got to do a Disney princess, and I just hope that people will fall in love with the songs. That's really all I can ask for.
Yeah, I was super excited to see that, and really happy for you guys.
That's
awesome.
I mean, it also definitely wasn't from you being
No,
rated.
like, it has nothing like to do with me. Absolutely not. So
yeah.
We have a couple questions. Let's knock these out. Mobile Mutant wants to know, did you guys ever meet the Hives in Sweden?
Oh, no, but I love the Hives. They're so cool. I haven't met them.
Just Sabaton.
And some others.
And a few others, yeah, but not them.
Ben Doran says, I know you guys had quite a list of shows last summer. Are you guys going to be shooting for as many shows this year?
We're going to try to be a little bit better. And by better, I mean like actually have more rest days. For my voice's sake too, because like we do pretty difficult songs and I go pretty high, and I would love to be able to give 100% at every show. And so we're planning on 4 shows a week instead of like unlimited. And
we've done up to 10 shows in a week.
Yeah.
And like
or like performances, yeah.
Or performances, but that's been like, you know, multiple shows a day in different cities in Wisconsin. Like at times, you know, doing a show, driving 3 hours, doing another show. And like, it just really, like, I think we're getting to the point in our career now too, where we're like, we need to be smart about this. And also we want to give as much as we can. Yeah. But it has to make sense too. And so like for us, it's taken this long, you know, and doing 600 some shows to be able to be a bit more like, okay, let's do 4 shows a week. Yeah. But like the ones we do, we're going to make them bigger and do like the best we can, you know, instead of spreading out our efforts. It just like you get diminishing returns on your own voice.
And so we're just trying to be good about it. I mean, 4 shows a week is still like a lot. We're not saying that it's not. It's just we're gonna try to limit us to that so that we don't like go too overboard and like burn out.
Well, probably lots of videos and things like that in the future. If people are finding out about 7000 Apart today, you guys have a ton of stuff out there. Your YouTube page is loaded. Lots of great videos, including one that I can't remember the name of currently. But you're in bed and all these electronics are coming out, phones, TVs, John's carrying TVs. And but I was wondering where that was going to go, and it didn't go where I thought it was going to go.
Oh, where did you think it was going to go?
I thought it was going to go that, you know, people can watch it, but there's a candle, you light a candle at the end. I thought it was going to be like things were going to be better, that the electronics were gone. Yeah. But it was kind of like the electricity's out and just the candle lit. But I guess your mind can end it however you want to.
Exactly.
But I thought that was so clever. Like when you guys are doing your videos, you said you worked with the team before. Are you mostly working with other people to do these?
Yeah, we did we've done a couple of music videos ourselves, but then we've just worked with really good people. The person who did A Whole Lot Left to Lose and No is a Nice Word, his name is Jake, and he's just awesome. He's from here. He lives out in LA now, and so we're wanting to go over there and shoot a video now.
He worked with I don't know if you've heard of Michael Darling before. He's an artist from Madison area, and so we met Michael somehow, and then ended up I saw this video that he posted. I'm like, this is so good. This is so funny. And like for Wisconsin, I'm like, this is insane. This is crazy. And it ended up being Jake. And so he's done like some short feature films and stuff, or like short films and stuff like that as well. And now he moved to LA, so we want to go and record with him out there as well. And we talked about having him come to Sweden even, because like he's just so good, and he's worked with.
We even thought about meeting halfway in Iceland.
Just filming somewhere just to. He's so good, and he just comes up with simple, good ideas that are really fun and memorable, which is all you can ask for, I think, in a music video, you know.
Well, I'm excited for the album. The Kickstarter, of course, is over in 4 days. So if people would like to support this, please go do it sooner than later. Yes. You're going to be self-producing this album, which will be a little different for you. Yeah. Any other different trajectories for this album compared to the other releases?
I think we, so the first album, we wanted it to be like super just acoustic, something we can look back on and it'd be timeless. The second album was very much like, okay, let's explore a few different genres that we might want to do.
And make more pop, more like a little bit, try to go a little bit more mainstream.
This one, I think, is very much, we chose like the 2 genres that we felt like people liked the most, but also that we really love as well. And so those, we kind of cut out a few other genres, and like we're trying to just like make it a bit more cohesive than the second album, but also still be us and still be, you know. So I think the big thing with it is it's a bit more independent sounding. Yeah. Because we're producing it ourselves. But
And we like that. We like the indie sound, and we like, you know, we have a little bit more distorted guitars this time, and
but it's still very much like in the, I would say, in the pop world as well, but it's, or at least the vocals are treated very pop, and it's still very focused on the lyrics and the melody, and like, you know, but there are also drums, and like I think we always want to make songs, and especially with this album, that are going to also work well live.
yeah.
And so either if the produced version is not something that would work well live, we want to make a live version specifically. So like that's something in the future maybe we could, you know, record live versions of the songs too, because they might be slightly different. But yeah, I think like that's something we very much keep in mind is like live in Wisconsin, and like it's very clear when we play here, like, okay, these songs work well here,
Yeah.
and these ones don't. And so like, but the problem is quite often the stuff that works well on Spotify doesn't work well in Wisconsin. So like we're kind of in this weird position where we're trying to maintain both of those and grow, because we're trying to grow in Europe and stuff as well. So it's very much like trying to do both things that we like, because we love everything,
Yeah.
but you have to have it be a little bit more in a box for people to be like, okay, that's cool. You know, like it needs to be at least like 1 or 2 genres instead of like 4 or 5
Yeah.
or something. So, or that's what we've noticed. But
Got my cool hat on. Which, can you get these at 7000?
Yeah, you can get them, and you can get them at the shows as well. Yeah.
So can you tell us what you're going to be playing today?
Yeah, we want to play you our next single. Our plan is to release every month on the 7th from now on, because that would make sense, you know, because we want to release once a month. And that is also like the thing with the Kickstarter, is that we're releasing these songs one at a time for the streaming services, like Spotify. But if you back the album, you get them all before then. So like, yeah, that is also part of that. But yeah, we want to play you up to date. This song is kind of about like, I mean, since we've talked about our story a little bit, it's when we first started hanging out, and we were like, are we dating? Are we not? Like, are we ready for this? Are we not? Like, yeah.
the situationship concept.
Yes, it's very situationship coded. Tripping on words like it's a tightrope, running in circles, I might explode. Kept on a lunch line, my head spinning. Tiptoe around, it's not a fair game. It's my understanding that I'm insane, driving me wild. Why would you ask this of me? I'm done fooling around, so done. I found the one, let the curtain fall, 'cause I'm here for it all. You're up to date, I'm up to date, yeah. What I've had in my head is an illusion. I'm waking up from an illusion. Told myself I wanted you in that way. Contorting myself into a lock cage. It's time that we break out to the main stage. So follow my lead, let's walk out to the spotlight. Done fooling around, so done. I found one, let the curtain fall, 'cause I'm here for it all. You're up to date, I'm up to date. I wanna stay in your arms. If you don't want me this way, I'm walking away. Good morning.